on Earth. A 2-acre compound at the University of Tennessee devoted to studying what happens to the body after death. The scene isn't for the squeamish. On any given day, the ground is strewn with some 50 corpses, lying in the gruesome poses of death. Many of the bodies have been donated for the research, but it's still a way of treating the dead that would make many fearful.
We really can't ever let go of the idea that that body has a spirit that cares what happens to it. So if we leave that corpse out, it is as though we are neglecting a real living person, only this particular configuration of a person may have very special powers to get back at us for our neglect.
But the scientists who work here aren't bothered by spirits. For them, this is an open-air laboratory of decay.
What is unique about the facility is that we can look at this process of decomposition day 1, day 2, day 18, and day 37, and day 156.
Dr. Murray Marks is a forensic anthropologist. It's his job to gather the data that will help police determine time of death of badly decomposed bodies.
Once decomposition sets in, a normal autopsy cannot be done, and so the pathologist turns to the anthropologist to come up with some information.
To provide that information, Dr. Marks is compiling an unusual, and for some, stomach-turning reference work. An atlas for law enforcement that will display bodies in every state of decay.
What happens is you pull out the atlas and you compare your body that's decomposed to this. It's a standard. It will provide, I think, a gold standard for the process of decomposition.
Setting the standard starts with documenting each of these bodies in grisly detail. It's work that would give most people pause.
It's a very important work that forensic anthropologists are doing, but to do that, we have to do one of the most prohibited things ever. We have to take bodies and not embalm them, not treat them respectfully as we think of respect. We have to put them out and let them decay. And we have to look at them.
But Dr. Marks and his assistant, graduate student Maria Teresa Tersini, are unfazed by the taboo. They're intent on scrutinizing these cadavers for clues.
Every body is different. Every skeleton is different. Every body that is lying on that hillside is a crime scene.
The work at the body farm is important to solving crimes, but it's also gruesome. The researchers start with this 2-week-old corpse. They put on rubber gloves to protect them from bacteria and diseases carried by the bodies. But that won't protect them from something equally awful: the stench.
It's not like garbage. It's not even like a dead animal. It's not like a mouse that's behind your wall that dies. I mean, it's a pungent, sweet smell. You never forget it.
But the two researchers aren't bothered by the odor. They're focused on precisely those details of death that would revolt most people. Each is an important clue in establishing time of death. One of the first is blackened skin. The darker the flesh, the longer the body's been dead.
You can see the head is darker, that arm is a little bit darker, so I'm trying to show all the variation throughout the body.
Not too many people would want to think about what flies and maggots do to a body, much less study it. But Dr. Marks knows these scavengers are as regular as clockwork. The first flies will arrive within half an hour of death and invade the body. Inside the body, the flies lay eggs, and 24 hours later, the eggs produce these slithering, flesh-eating insects, maggots.
Now these maggots go through and just completely consume all this soft tissue.
These worm-like creatures may disgust most people, but they're an important clue for Dr. Marks. He can tell from their size how long they've been there. When the maggots reach 15 millimeters in length, they've been feeding for about 1 week. Then there's bloating. As a body decays, it fills with gases that can cause the bloating and splitting of flesh, all in a specific time frame. Many might find this grotesque, but these researchers aren't disgusted by bloating. They're interested in measuring it by hand.
124?
1.5.
Okay.
That's closer than most people would want to get to a corpse. But handling corpses is crucial to collecting the kind of data Dr. Marks needs. Rigor mortis, the stiffening of the joints, disappears after 3 days.
No, it's definitely dried out.
So he wants to know what kind of mobility this body has after 2 weeks.
I'm just looking for any kind of an indicator that this body is going through that might help.
The bodily indicators are helpful, but to most, unsettling.
To see a body bloated, to see the body darken, to see all of these physical changes that takes place suggests a kind of transformation that we are helpless against. To see a dead body is to suggest what can happen to ourselves, and we desperately want to avoid that knowledge.
With his unusual expertise, Dr. Marks is often called on to help with active police investigations.
There's a lot more to this than I thought.
Today, a puzzle is waiting for him in the university's lab.
Yeah, that was the...
It's a mystery with few apparent clues. A car was found submerged in a lake. Inside were these remains.
And a tibia together with this...
Was this a man or a woman? How old were they? And how did they die?
What we'll do is try to clean all this up, get all the encased mud off of it, and then make some assessment, like I said, on that biological profile. And that's kind of what the anthropologist is after, trying to decipher the story that tells us what happened around the time of death. Where?
Dr. Marks will try to apply what he's learned on the body farm to these frozen bones.
You can see the boot here.
Any one of them may reveal its own piece of the puzzle.
And the good thing about bone is that bone keeps pretty much a mirror image of anything that happens to it around the time of death. And that's going to be there for the anthropologist to interpret when the soft tissue's gone.
Thawing and cleaning take all night, but finally, the bones are ready to tell their story. The amount of wear and tear on some of the leg bones has given them clues about age.
Age-wise, 20s or 30s. Definitely not younger than that, and probably not older than that.
The pelvis shows that it's a man, and the shape of the skull gives them some idea of the man's race.
Looking at this one, it may have some characteristics of European ancestry.
But one discovery stands out. Marks on the bones raise the possibility that this might be a murder case. Now, the stakes are higher than ever.
You want me to chart this on Monday?
Yeah.
This piece of jawbone may be their best clue to giving these bones an identity.
Hopefully there'll be a dental records match, because there are a lot of restorations in the teeth that are going to allow a positive identification to be made.
It's a goal that motivates Dr. Marks in all his work.
Well, I think, you know, everybody's born with an identity, and you should die with one. Obviously, the victim isn't going to know anything, but there's family, there's resolution that takes place, and I see my role as working with the victim.
For now, all they can do for the unknown remains is wait for a dental match. But back at the body farm, Dr. Marks continues to seek a better understanding of death and decay.
The better I am sitting over on that hill watching these processes, the better the crime scene investigator is going to be, and the more evidence they'll have to give as far as finding suspects. And I'm fortunate to be able to be a part of that. It's not nasty, and it's not gross or awful to do. I mean, it's a job that has to be done.
Medical examiner, crime scene cleaner, body farm researcher. They're jobs that very few people would want to do or could do. But as long as there is crime, there will be a need for people to help solve it or clean up after it. We may recoil from such work, but we can be thankful that there are those who are willing to do it for us. People who, day in and day out, are willing to confront what others find taboo.